Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? Yes. Welcome to Miami. It seems like after the first day, some of you went to the party last night. It was excellent. We have another one tonight at 6 o'clock. Don't miss it. And I just want to thank all of you for coming. And I especially want to thank my friend Michael Nathanson, representing Nomura. That's a big title, Michael, I have to say. And Jeffrey, thank you for coming. This is Jeff's hometown, so he's very comfortable down here. Michael and Nomura have sponsored this room of thought leadership for the next 3 days. And the whole idea is to have conversations, small conversations, half-hour conversations, just one-on-one, one-on-two people, either no questions for the audience or minimal questions from the audience, just so we really get kind of a drilling, deep-down conversation that I hope that all of you will enjoy. So I hope you enjoy everything that we do for the next 3 days. I want to thank Nomura for the sponsorship of the Thought Leadership Room and welcome you all. And Michael Nathanson, take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rick. Thank you all for coming today. And thank you, Jeff. I'm the media analyst for Nomura, and we're proud to sponsor NATPE this year, and we're pleased to be host of all the sessions taking place in the Thought Leadership Room during this conference. Now, to start off this year's conference, I would like to introduce Jeff Zucker, President and CEO of NBC Universal. Obviously, Jeff needs no introduction, except for me to tell you that he is also my brother-in-law, having the good fortune to marry my sister Karen a long time ago. So I thank Jeff for coming today and agreeing to participate as he is about to leave NBCU after 24 wonderful years.
So we're getting this right under the wire.
Exactly, exactly. But I'll see him again, I think. To start off, Jeff, I'd be remiss not to mention Keith Olbermann's departure over the weekend. It's being portrayed as a mutual decision to separate, and is that the right read?
What happened to the brother-in-law questions? You know, look, I actually can't say anything beyond what the company has already said on Friday with regard to both MSNBC and Keith agreed to end the contract, and I'm just not going to comment beyond that.
Okay. Are you worried though about the impact on MSNBC with his exit?
No, look, I think one of the great stories in television and in cable television over the last couple of years is the emergence of MSNBC. And Keith obviously played an important role in making that happen. But I think MSNBC today is in a very strong position, right. Has really emerged over the last few years. And though Keith was obviously an incredible talent and an incredible part of that success, I think the network now is in an incredibly strong position, much stronger than it perhaps has ever been. And so I'm actually quite confident that success will continue for some time to come, and I think we feel confident about MSNBC's future. Okay.
Another topical question would be, on Friday, GE released the last set of NBC earnings under your watch. It looked like the earnings are really strong. So you talk a bit about what's driving the results currently with the company?
Well, we had a phenomenal fourth quarter. We were up 38% year to year, which was the best. It was actually the best quarterly performance since NBC and Universal merged back in 2004. And it really was driven by great success across the board in all of our divisions. Our cable group once again continued to lead the way with another double-digit growth quarter. Our theme parks, especially the one here in Florida, led by the new Harry Potter attraction at Universal Orlando, and then the King Kong exhibit in Los Angeles. Theme parks turned in their best quarter ever. Broadcasting was also strong. NBC News, NBC Sports, especially on the strength of Sunday Night Football, and NBC Entertainment all did well. So, up and down the line, and then Universal Pictures with the release of the Despicable Me DVD, we had a phenomenal quarter, and the marketplace is strong, and we took advantage of that with good success. And so we were incredibly proud of the performance.
Okay, let me ask you, a few years ago, you were concerned, and I would share the concern, about the current model of broadcast TV. Has your outlook changed in recent years, and if so, why?
Yeah, I think, look, we feel better about broadcasting today. I feel better about broadcasting today than I have in a long time. Obviously, a few years ago, the economy concerned all of us, and that has come back. That's a little cyclical in nature, obviously, and I think we're on a real upswing with regard to the advertising marketplace, and that continues to be strong both at the national and local level, both on the English side and the Spanish language side, Telemundo being very important to us as well. But I think more importantly, I think the model feels a little better with the acknowledgement that discrete retransmission fees are going to be paid to broadcast networks, which wasn't clear 2-3 years ago. And that is going to make a huge difference in the viability of broadcast networks. And so I think the combination of that secular change and the cyclical change, I think broadcasting is in as strong a position today as it's been in a long time.
Right. Well, following that, if ESPN is getting $4 to $5 a month in affiliate fees for the NFL and other sports, and Fox News and TNT get $1 a month for news and for their sports, what's the right price for NBC's broadcast content from a distributor?
Well, I think, look, NBC should clearly be at the high end. ESPN is obviously in a different world, but I think that NBC and the broadcast networks should be at the high end of that rate card, as it were. Our content is incredibly valuable, and a lot of that content, is not just entertainment, but news and sports. Historically, the broadcast networks and NBC have gotten paid retrans in other ways, and so maybe we don't go to the top of the rate card immediately, because we've obviously enjoyed some of those fees through other ways and built other assets. But now that we are going to be properly compensated for the broadcast networks, I think it should be at the high end of that rate card. The broadcast audiences perhaps aren't what they were, but they still dwarf the cable networks in a significant way, which is to take nothing away from the cable networks. We love cable; it's been a huge part of our success. But the broadcast audiences are still much larger, and we deserve to be compensated for that. And I think it comes out at the high end of that rate card. Okay.
Well, the fly in the ointment could be that you only own 25% of, let's say, the footprint of your distribution, right? Because you have affiliates in most of your markets because you guys don't have that many stations. So prior to the Comcast acquisition of NBCU, how did NBC start to consider, or how did you view your affiliates and maybe reverse retrans? So how did the affiliate model have to change prior to the Comcast deal, in order to monetize that footprint?
Well, obviously, look, I can't speak for how the new management will look at that. But I think our view of that was we still valued the affiliate relationship tremendously. And, we're not, we depend on each other. And we think that we always thought that at NBC we had an incredibly strong affiliate relationship. Having said that, we also thought that that there was a model that needed to be established where we were both sharing in the upside of whatever those fees that were going to be paid, and that we were entitled to some of that from some of our affiliates. But look, obviously, the new management team will figure out the best relationship for them and the best way that should go forward. But I think it's clear that the broadcast networks and the affiliates, we all need each other, and we're all in this together. And so I think that those things will be worked out as the years unfold.
Okay. In terms of how we see the world, we see as a bit of irony that Comcast is acquiring NBCU for the cable networks. For this question, when we watch consumption of content, we're seeing more and more, content ubiquity and online streaming, and there are a lot of shows, The Office, 30 Rock, they're now available online and on your DVR. There are certain cable networks that are built on repeat content, okay? So the question would be, how do cable networks that are general entertainment cable networks that have been built on the buying of off-network content, how do they evolve in a world where you have more and more time shifting, more and more ubiquitous content?
Well, I can speak for our cable assets as we thought about that. I mean, obviously, we had 6 major cable networks, USA, Sci-Fi, Bravo, Oxygen, CNBC, and MSNBC. 5 of those relied almost solely on original content. CNBC and MSNBC obviously were live news content, Oxygen, Bravo, and Sci-Fi. Sci-Fi, there's not much material for them to buy.
Right.
Bravo and Oxygen were producing a large amount of their material. So I think that the original production was key for those cable networks. USA, obviously being the biggest cable network that we own, the #1 cable network for the last 5 years.
Right.
I think what you've seen because of the issues that you raise is a dramatic move to original programming.
Right.
I think they just blew up the back of this hotel with burn notice.
Right.
And I think that's a perfect example of one of the series that has made USA so successful. USA in the next, within the next year will have 12 original series on the air. This is a network that 3 or 4 years ago had 3 original series.
Right.
So I think you're seeing the way that we combat the problem that you talk about is you have to move to more original programming. You have to move to give people a reason to come there. And I think that's certainly what the team at USA under Bonnie Hammer and Jeff Wachtel, who I think is on another panel right now, have done. And they've done it tremendously.
Because you saw that coming.
I think that it's clear that's a concern. I mean, look, USA in particular has had tremendous success with its acquired content, and it's been a great run and provided a nice backbone for the network. But the original content is what makes USA USA.
Okay. As a media analyst, there is a lot of investor concern on Wall Street about the future of cord cutting. As consumers, we fear opt out of pay TV to use the web to access content in a deflationary way. So you've been involved in 2 decisions that in many ways have stoked these fears. One is the development of Hulu, and then the recent TV content deal with Netflix. So knowing what you know now, what would be different about those 2 decisions?
Can we go back to the Keith Olbermann question? No. Well, look, I don't. I mean, those obviously were independent decisions, Hulu and Netflix, and I wouldn't change either of those decisions. I'm incredibly proud of what Hulu has become. It's actually exceeded every expectation we had.
Right.
You have to remember that when we formed Hulu, people were stealing our content and building businesses on the back of piracy, and that was an attempt to really deal with that, and I think we have successfully done that. With regard to your question, though, and why do we put some content online? First of all, we don't look at it as free. First of all, it's ad supported.
Right.
Okay, so there's that. But also, a good deal of our content is consumed live, and really the value is live, news and sports.
Right.
Secondly, the value online. There's still no evidence to us that there's a cannibalization of people who are viewing this material online and the linear enjoyment of it. Third, look, online is still a better experience for us than the DVR. Right. There's no fast forwarding in it. We get to control the ad format and the ad load and the data that we receive from that. And then finally, as I said, if we don't, the consumer has made it clear that they want to enjoy it this way. And if we don't make it available, then piracy will rear its head as what happened to the music industry. I think if you take all of those things, that's why we have done it.
Right.
Now, I don't know that, I don't know that we've gotten it. It's been perfect, but I think we've experimented, and I think I feel proud of what we've done. With regard to Netflix, you asked about Netflix.
Yep.
Why? We really have made only one deal with Netflix with regard to current material.
Right.
It's been a library play for us, principally on the TV side.
Right.
And in some respects, it replaced the back-end syndication model that went away for some shows.
Right.
And in order to pay for this content, you got to have a back end. And if the syndication marketplace wasn't entirely robust for it, then this was one way to replace it.
Right.
With regard to the one deal we did with current material, we didn't have a syndication play for that show.
Right.
And so this turned out to be that.
Okay. Let me ask you, the question of premium content online, as you get more and more affiliate fees coming in for broadcasts, you get retrans, reverse retrans, would that change your view? Does all of a sudden having a distributor pay for your content, was that an evolving thought?
Sure. I mean, the more and more that you get paid for it,
right.
Then you'll obviously make those decisions. So, pay us fairly
right.
would be what I would say in order to, not have some of that content out there.
Right.
But don't forget, the retrans value that's being paid, a lot of it, like I said before, goes to things like news and
right.
sports
right.
That are viewed live, and that there's no real online exploitation of the Today Show and nightly news and Sunday Night Football, the biggest show on television. So the retrans value is there's no online exploitation for some of the content that we're getting retrans value. There's no online exploitation of it.
Okay. Can you talk a bit about how important the NFL is to the future of NBC and to broadcast in general?
Well, I mean, I think you only need to look at what happened this year in terms of the NFL. There's probably not a more important brand in all of, maybe in America, in terms of, our entire culture. You look at the two games yesterday and
right.
how unbelievable they were. Sunday Night Football has been incredible for NBC. Dick Ebersol, who's going to rightly be honored tomorrow night, has created yet another franchise in television that, almost never happens. Sunday Night Football is now the #1 program in all of television. Right. And so, I can't even begin to tell you how important that program right. is to NBC. I'd shudder to think about NBC right. without it, frankly.
Right.
But look, all the broadcast networks and all the networks, even ESPN and the NFL Network, enjoyed record ratings this year.
Right.
And so, at a time when other ratings are declining, the NFL was up.
Right.
I think that tells you how powerful and important the NFL is.
Because there's a creeping fear in Wall Street, potentially of a strike later this season. So, what do you think will happen next season if there is a strike? And do you expect?
Well, look, I mean, obviously,
right.
I don't think any of us knows for sure what's
right.
going to happen, and I think everybody's hopeful that'll get worked out. Obviously, that would leave a gaping hole on all of the networks
right.
and in the country, and so I think hopefully there will be a resolution before we get to next season.
Okay. Another fear we have on the street. See, I give Jeff all the street worries. Another worry people have is that, as you said, the NFL is so critical to TV that as those new deals come through for the NFL, there's going to be rising rights fees. So how do you see, certain content is going to just go up in value, NFL one of them. So how do you see that balance of making sure you have profitability within your P&L and supporting the NFL?
Well, look, I mean, you have to, at the end of the day, you have to make decisions as to what's most important to your company. I can't speak for other companies.
Right.
But look, you can't afford everything.
Right.
But if you can afford something, it's probably the NFL.
Okay.
It just means that you have to make choices.
Right.
It's a lot like life.
Exactly.
You can't have everything, and you got to decide what's most important.
Okay. One of the things, Jeff Bewkes at Time Warner has been very, very strongly in favor of TV Everywhere and building it out. Where is the evolution of TV Everywhere within NBCU, and how do you see that project going?
Well, we've supported TV Everywhere. I mean, we believe and agree that having consumers be able to enjoy content on whatever screen, wherever they are, is in the interests of the entire industry. I think that it has to move ahead now in terms
right.
of making it technically reliable, and
right.
so I think that's the next challenge for that. But we're supportive, and we have been
right.
supportive of TV Everywhere.
If you look at here in the next 5 years, we come back here in 5 years, what do you think is going to be the biggest change between the business we know now and business 5 years from now?
Look, I think there's going to be a continuing move towards mobile, and I think there's going to be a continuing move towards making content available on different screens. And I think that how we get paid for that, I think, is really the question over the next 3 to 5 years. And I think that's the challenge for everybody in this room. I think that's the challenge for the industry. And so hopefully if we come back here in 5 years, we figured out a way to monetize all the different exploitations of content across all of these screens. We haven't completely figured that out yet. And I think that's the challenge, and hopefully what we'll have in 5 years.
Well, putting those two things together, the TV everywhere question combined with the mobile and the many screens, is that the right route though to work with the people who are actually collecting the tolls currently from the consumers? Because that Wall Street's view is you have a model that works in the ecosystem that works. Why disrupt the model?
Yeah, I mean, but you cannot change progress,
right?
And you can't put the genie back in the bottle. The iPad did not exist 18 months ago, and now everybody here has one, or almost everybody has one,
right.
And people are watching, watching their content on some kind of smartphone. It's progress, and
right.
You can't deny progress. This is the challenge of figuring out the business models, but
right.
You can't put your head in the sand and say, "Oh, go away! I wish it weren't us."
Right.
Because we are where we are, and I think that's the lesson that we've tried to take from the music industry, is that they tried to ignore. Unfortunately, they ignored it,
right.
And got overwhelmed. And I think that's what we've tried to do, is experiment with certain things, know that certain things weren't gonna, some things would work, some things weren't. You might be critical of something like Hulu or a Netflix deal, but I don't think any of us knows for sure where it's going. And so I think our philosophy always was to try some of these things. And you might say, well, that only speeds up the disintegration of your business model. But look, let's find a new model,
right.
And let's not pretend that these things don't exist. I know the surest way to go out of business is to pretend that they don't exist.
In that evolution, what type of assets should investors and people who work in the industry look to own or work for? So when you think of like the right set of assets to work with?
Well, look, I mean, I think a couple things. Content, none of these devices work without content. And so great content at the end of the day is what matters. And I think, investing in great content, it goes back to the NFL discussion.
Right.
Investing in great content, investing in news, investing in a great novella, investing in content, wherever it is, I think is incredibly important. And then in terms of what kind of asset mix is good, I think I think in this day and age, a diversified media holdings are important. And I think that's what you see for most of the major media companies today.
Okay, and now time for a brother-in-law question. So for the next, now that you're leaving NBCU, what does next year hold for you and your family? So what kind of things are you thinking about going forward?
Well, I've worked at NBC Universal or NBC Universal for the last 24 and a half years, and never had an opportunity to think about what else and what I would do next, because I just kept doing whatever the next job was. So, Friday will be my last day,
right.
And on Monday, I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I'm kind of excited about that for two reasons. I've worked every day of my life. I've never had a day off, and secondly, thinking about all the things that are out there and all the things that interest me
right.
Is exciting. And I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know that I'm passionate about this business, about media, about producing. My most favorite memories of these 24 and a half years were producing news and sports. And I loved that experience, and I think a lot about perhaps getting back into that too.
Okay. And that, I don't know how we're doing for time. I can't tell by that clock. Can you tell by that clock? If you want, we can take a couple from the audience before we wrap it up. If you want to do that. And if people want to introduce themselves, we can do that too. Yep.
Good morning. Mr. Zucker, I wish you the best with your future. My name is Susan Albershart. I'm a professor at Full Sail University. The average age of my student is about 20 years old. When I ask them if they watch TV, they all say no.
Do you ask them if they read a newspaper?
They read everything on the internet.
Right, yeah.
Mostly blogs and things, but they do love content.
Right.
It's hard for them to pay for cable. So they have their high-speed internet or their cable service. So my question to you is, if television can be distributed without having to pay for cable, don't you think the audience would be much bigger?
Well, I mean, a couple things. Look, let's remember that our company has been paid, it goes back to Michael's question about business models. That content that they're enjoying, not through their cable subscription, is expensive to produce. And if we don't find a way to get paid for that, then that content won't exist. So we're going to have to figure out how to monetize that, even if they're not watching it through their cable box. Mm-hmm. Secondly, look, I mean, I think you raise an important point about the future. I don't think that the world is going to change from how we know it over the next 5 years. But generationally, the next 10 to 20 years, I think it'll probably look a lot different. Michael asked me, well, how will it look in 5 years? Probably won't look all that dissimilar. 10 to 20, the generation, your students and below them, in terms of entertainment and newspapers and that kind of content, I think it's going to change dramatically. Yeah,
can I say something? When I first started at Bernstein, I was a music analyst, and I'd come to music conferences, and I would ask people who are 20, are you downloading music? Are you paying for it? Are you stealing it? Do you buy albums? And I was like, no, we're stealing music. And it was the most terrifying thing I've ever heard in my life. And yours is terrifying also, because that's potentially where we're going longer term.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kate Bulkley. I'm a journalist based in the UK. There's been a lot of mergers. You have NBC Universal, you've got Comcast. From your perspective, having lived through that, do you think there's going to be more mergers of that size? In other words, are we going to see more studios and networks trying to get together with cable? Do you think they'll maybe get together? You mentioned mobile phone networks. You mentioned, the iPads. Do you think we'll get more, let's say, conflagrations of companies, or do you think it's going to be about partnerships? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you probably should ask Michael that question more than me. But look, I think we probably are heading into a better M&A period, and I think that people will look to do more. And I think now that the NBC Universal deal is done, my expectation is you'll see more deals, whether they are outright deals or partnerships. I think you'll see a combination of both of those.
Yeah, and the great irony is before Comcast NBC was proposed, we on the street really looked questioningly at the combination of content distribution. Time Warner had tried it. I had worked at Time Warner. It never worked at Time Warner. It had not worked at News Corp. So it's interesting. I don't think there's going to be more content distribution deals because it's not necessary. But that's just the Wall Street view. I think we have time for one more. That's it? Okay. Okay, thank you very much to Jeff. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. We wish him the best.